January brings new resolutions, new goals, new hopes, and a clean slate. All of these are fabulous, and we all need the refreshing of something new. However, I want to take a second to observe the new me I've become through the past year. There have been many changes in my life, personal, physical, financial, geographical. January brings new resolutions. Focus on, for a second, the interchanges. I'm a new person because of the previous list, but the real change that has happened is the transformation that's taken place on the inside. The sharing is to talk about the things that I've learned this year. In 2020, I believe it was meant for us to stop the train and reevaluate our life. I believe the purpose of 2021 for myself was to be a year of awareness. And I believe 2022 was meant to be a year of change, growth, and eliminating and adding. And for me, I believe 2023 is a whole new, beautiful reality full of life, love, fearlessness, faith, and great rise for all who choose this. So I made a list of the things that I have learned, and I just want to go through the list together. Now, this could be a really long sharing or it could be a shorter sharing. So I'm not going to expand on each of these points because that would be a while. I'll expand on a few of them, and then I'm just going to kind of give you the list of the things I've learned. And as I do, it is my hope that your heart will remember some of the things that you've learned through this year. I made a habit of starting to write on my phone. Anytime I learn something new, I put it on my phone so that I can go back and go, oh yeah. Some of it I hear and develop it and grow, and it becomes my own. And some of it it's in my heart and I don't understand it yet. But this is a list of the things that I actually learned this past year. Debt to others, number 1. If you ever feel as though you owe someone something like time, attention, an answer, that should be an alarm to you. I live from a place of not owing. If someone called, I used to live in a place of I owed everybody. So if someone called, I owed them a call back. If someone asked me a question, I owed them an answer. But, if I live in a place of a poverty mentality, that's living in a place of owing. I don't want to live in a place of a poverty mentality. I don't know anyone, anything. Romans 8:32, I'll know anything but to love one another. For he that loveth another hath fulfilled the law. So I learned that I had lived in debt for a really long time. And I'm not going to do that anymore with my heart. Another thing I learned, no one owes me a thing. Just a living in obligation put me in a place of debt. Feeling like I was owed was also a poverty mentality. No one, not my parents, not my kids, not my friends, not my boss, not my spouse, not that person who was awful to me, not even God owes me anything. I am responsible and empowered to live sufficiently. My dad has given and done it all. Both of these lessons showed me that I was mentally living below par. So I'm going to get rid of that poverty mindset. Defeating that kind of mindset was a goal of mine. I never realized it started in obligation and mental debt. I never realized that I started in obligation and mental debt. But as I looked at it, I decided I wasn't going to owe anyone anything and no one was going to owe me anything from this point on. Another thing that I learned, number 3, no one owns another man or woman, not even our spouse. I don't even own my kids. They are free humans who get to live their own life story. I just get to enjoy watching it. Psalms 24:1 says that the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. The world and all its people belong to him. That is a burden lifter. I am not responsible to own anyone. My dad has that job. I'll let him keep it. Another thing I learned this year was that real love is not based on what I can get from you. If I really love you, then I need nothing from you. I enjoy your joys, even if it means I don't get to be a part of them, because I love you. And real love doesn't need anything in return. Another thing, walking in others' shoes is not an option, but choosing to see the best in them and for them is. Romans 14:13. Therefore, let us not pass judgment on another any longer, but rather decide never to put a stumbling block or hindrance in the way of a brother. Romans 14:13. A fifth thing I learned is it can be It can and will turn out better than you can expect. Fearlessly believe this. Ephesians 3:20. This is the TPT version. Never doubt God's mighty power to work in you and accomplish all this. He will achieve infinitely more than your greatest request, your most unbelievable dream, and exceed your wildest imagination. He will outdo them all, for his miraculous power constantly energizes you. It can and will turn out better than you can expect. Romans 8:38. So we are convinced that every detail of our lives is continually woven together for good, for we are his lovers who have been called to fulfill his design purpose. This is why we are not to be afraid of sudden fear. We know that it will all work out. Just breathe. Another thing I learned this past year, being is seeing. Just be who you truly are, and then you will see what you need to see. I was in an awful habit of being what I thought others needed me to be, saying and doing what I thought others needed me to say or do. I have learned that what others need from me is for me to be the best version of me. When I am love, I manifest love to others. When I am light, I manifest light to others. When I am at peace, others benefit from being at peace in my presence. This isn't self-centered. This is where love begins, on the inside. And I love Teresa sharing. I love that. Another thing I learned, and this was a big one for me, and I'm going to take this one to a whole nother level this year. So expect to see this one on a whole nother level this time next year. I learned that fear is a liar. We've heard false evidence appearing real. I want to read a quote from a movie, and I read it last week, but I'm going to read it again. This is a quote from a movie called After Earth, and he says this: "Fear is not real. The only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It's a product of our imagination, causing us to fear things that do not at present and may not ever exist. This is near insanity, Katai." That was a little deeper voice to quote him well. The quote really struck my heart. I know that God does not give us the spirit of fear, but what I saw when I pondered this is that fear is something I have the ability to bring into existence by my thoughts. Thoughts of the future, thoughts of the what if, how. Fear exists if I allow it. I love what Shirley shared today about fear. He roams about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. I allow him to devour, or I do not. I take my right and say, you have no home here, or I say, come on in, you're invited. It is my choice. I have every right to stop fear from existing in my mind. I have been given power. I have been given love. I have been given a sound mind. This is my reality. This is where I choose to stay. This brings me to the next lesson I learned. Love casts out fear. 1 John 4:18. There is no fear in love. Just like fungus cannot exist in an alkaline balanced body, fear cannot exist in a love-filled mind. How do I get to a place of love? Just like feeding my body lemons or apple cider vinegar to get to an alkaline state, I feed my mind the truth of the word. Remind myself that he first loved me, that I am a child of God, that he so loved me that he gave his son for me, that he so loved me that he knows the numbers of hairs upon my head at any time. I recall to my thoughts that the creator of all chose to place Christ inside little o' me, making me a power-filled being. I am so powerful that at times it is beyond my comprehension. When I identify myself with who he created me to be, love passes from me, overflows from my whole cup, pours out of my being. And when you squeeze me, you get love all over your hands. Another thing I learned this year, I do not have to be offended. I do not have to defend, and I do not have to take it personal. I told my son's girlfriend this one time, I don't have to defend myself, and she was shocked. So later, I said, when I said I don't have to defend myself, I'm talking about defending your life. Let your life speak for itself. You do not have to defend what you did or did not do, what you will or will not do. Just let your life speak for itself. I don't have to get offended. I know that hurt people hurt people. And when someone says or does something that's hurtful to me, I get to decide to be offended, defend myself, be upset, or just say, you know what? It's okay. And let it go. I am not taking it personal anymore when people are hurtful or mean to me, because I know where those come from. They come from a hurt place. So I'm just going to love them in spite of. But first, I got to love me. If I love me, then it's easy for me to love you. Another thing I learned is that I'm not responsible for knowing what is in the entire ocean. I am only accountable for living that little part of the sea that is my life. That got me to the next point. Not my monkey, not my circus. I learned that peace that passes understanding is available even in the middle of a storm. All I have to do is ask. My brother showed us that. He was in a storm and he was sleeping. No one else around him had peace, but he did. I learned that grace cast out judgment, gratitude cast out oppression and depression. I learned living in the present is harder to do than it sounds, but it's where life is truly to be lived. Root yourself in the present moment. That is where you will find your power. I learned that self-care is vital. I have to have in order to give. And that requires taking the time to make sure I have all of my needs, mental, physical, spiritual. Another thing I learned came from Romans 1:17. I allow no condemnation in me. Have I heard this verse my whole life? Absolutely. But did I learn it this year? For the first time ever, I learned this verse. I made it my own. It became my truth, not someone else's truth, not a truth that I just read. It became my truth. No condemnation, period. John 3:16, identity is not external, but it's eternal and internal. Another thing I learned came from 2 Corinthians 5:21. I was a validation junkie. I looked for it all the time. I no longer seek others' validation. My value is in Christ alone. But I had to take some time to look and figure out why. Why do I need someone's validation? Why do I need an atta girl? Why do I need a, yes, that's right? Why? I took some time to look deep inside to figure out why I needed validation, where that came from. Because another thing I learned this year was to look at it. Whatever it is, look at it. That feeling. So that feeling of needing validation, I had to stop and look at it. When those feelings of fear came along, I have to stop and look at them, acknowledge it, go all the way around it and say, why are you here? Because I don't like you living here. So I no longer seek validation. And it's funny, whenever some of these things come back that I've gotten rid of, I'm aware of them like really quick. Here's an example. This isn't in my notes. Yesterday, I made a comment to a girlfriend, an old neighbor, and she wrote me, had some questions, and I wrote back and I said, great talking to you. I miss you. And as soon as I sent that, I was like uncomfortable with myself. That's not honest. I don't miss her. I don't have anything against her, but I don't miss her. Those words were not my truth. They were just words that I say out of obligation or validation, or just it's the right thing to say. Not speaking the truth is not the right thing to say. I don't miss her. I send her love. I send her beauty. I send her grace. I send her light, but I'm not longing and missing her. That's not truth. So what I've learned is as I'm making these things my own, when that old habit comes back in, I catch it quicker than when I used to. So when I need validation, I catch it now. Oh, wait, hang on. I don't need validation. That don't live here anymore. I'm able to check those things that don't live here anymore when they try to come back in just to see if there's still a place. Matthew 11:23, and a lot of great books we read this year, I learned voice-activated faith is how we're supposed to live. And that the atoms respond to our words. So our words are more powerful than we probably will ever comprehend while living on this earth. But I got a glimpse of it. I got a glimpse of the power of my words, that I can speak into being that which is not, and that which is, I can speak it out of being, that I can manifest things in this life just from these words. I learned this year, Philippians 2:13, it is God at work within me. God at work within you. It is. The all truth lives inside of me. He is at work within me, and he does not have to have me hit the mark. He is not limited to my weakness. He is still going to work in me. I blow it every flipping day, but I don't live in that place because remember, I don't live in condemnation anymore. He is still going to work in me because he's like that. He's that good. He is limitless. I cannot exhaust the goodness of God. I cannot exhaust the revelation of God. I cannot exhaust God at work within me, both to will and to his good pleasure. I cannot exhaust all things work together for my good. I cannot exhaust goodness and mercy follow me all the days of my life. I cannot exhaust that. I will not tire him out with all my screw ups. He will continually forgive me, continually help me get back on track, and continually be there for me. I never come to a place where he's like, we done. I have told you, and I've told you, and I've told you. Never come to that place with God. Another thing that I've learned is I am not living in an offensive state or defensive state. I just live in love. I learned shining light at times requires simple silence. Sometimes to be light and love, you just radiate it from within and be quiet. That was hard for me. I've learned that, I told you guys this one because I added it. God is not limited by my imperfections. He still works within me, even when I blow it. I learned that I cannot disappoint God. His love for me is not based on me. It's free. It's based on what Christ did. So I can't disappoint God. I can please him. I can't disappoint him. I also learned that the victory is in the mind before it is ever on the field. Another thing I learned is trying to control the world around me is like trying to organize the waves of the ocean. You cannot organize the waves of the ocean. You have to let go and flow. You can only be responsible for yourself. When I pray, God moves in the spiritual world, but sometimes it takes time to see it in the physical world. I ask myself a question. Are you afraid to succeed? Never fear success. He wants me to succeed. All I have to do is go take it. Because remember, he's already moved. There's nothing left for him to do. It's my job to go take what he has already made available. But what he does do sometimes is because I'm connected to the all-knowing, he will give me new information that at that moment I may not have had. All I have to do is ask. You have not because you ask not. Ask, Dad, I don't understand this. Dad, help me out in this situation. Dad, what am I doing? What is the matter with me? Oh, honey. That's how he responds to me. He may not respond to you like that. He responds to me, oh, honey. I also learned this year to speak my truth, even if my voice trembles. Truth sets me free, and it also sets free those who hear it. And as we were here today, I kept thinking of other things that I had learned throughout the years, so I wrote a few of them down. I learned about that the atoms respond to our words because our words are more powerful than we know. To be honest with ourselves is how we can be honest with others. And if we're not honest with ourselves, we can't genuinely be honest with others. And sometimes we have to be, Teresa triggered that, we have to be honest with ourselves and say, do I really want that? Or are those just words that I'm saying because everyone else says them? Do I really believe that? Are those just words that I say because everyone else says them? I have to be honest with myself. So they're not just words coming out of my mouth, and they're not just thoughts rolling around in my head, but it's genuinely my heart, not somebody else's heart. Look at it, but I talked about look at it. We have to look at it. And then today I learned about how we walk in the Spirit and we circle around in the Spirit, is circling the word around our heart. And that word, not peripotato, but peripateo is a Greek word that means to encircle our walk. And I thought about Abraham. That word is like stroll. We're supposed to just stroll with God. We're just supposed to be in a stroll within the Spirit because we're connected to the all-knowing. We're connected to that Spirit. And it said that Abraham staggered not at the promises of God through unbelief. He just strolled with God. He was a friend of God. That's what we do. We just stroll with God. We don't stagger. We just peripotato and we walk with God. So last week I asked if there's anything that you thought maybe you learned this year, write it down and bring it. And if you brought it, great. If you didn't, that's fine. But I do encourage you, take a minute. Look where you were last year. Remember some of the things that you've learned this year. See how far you've come and continue to make things your own. When we started this Zoom today that we were doing, Reverend Shirley Weidenhammer shared about new learning that she had in her life, new challenges that she was able to take on with new word. The word is new every day. He says that every day his promises are new, every single day. I will never exhaust it. I will never have arrived. I can continue to grow. Growth leads to transformation. Transformation leads to a beautiful new me. So, a year in a glance.